Michael, tell us, why is this your standout track from the album?
Truthfully, it is because it is the one, whenever I think about this album, it's the one that comes up to my brain first.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It just sticks with me. And it's just fun. It's a
Hmm.
blast every time I listen to it. From those opening dissonant, beautiful chords. We're just on a good ride.
Also feels like a very, I mean, like you said, it's a very joyful song off the album. It does feel like it has that sort of jazz, like you can hear the jazz and funk influence in this song very, very clearly. That maybe you it might not be as clear on some of the other songs, but this one, and this is one of the singles too. And from what I saw, it like didn't perform as well as the others, which seemed silly to me. But what do I know?
Sunday morning is like a specific image to me. Like I loved what you said in the first part about how it like kind of gave you an idea of like what could be to come in your life and love and stuff like that. And I think that's something I remember connecting with early about this song is I'm like, oh, this song is about being in relationship with somebody. This song is about like really needing someone. That must be a lucky thing as a songwriter, huh? To be able to capture a fundamental human connection in such a clear way, huh?
For sure. And there I mean there were many times like I can remember myself consciously being like, "Ugh, man, I can't wait till I have a Jane." I guess it would have been a Jim for me, but yeah, it was very just evocative, and I was like, "Ugh, I want a Sunday morning like that." Because so many, my Sunday mornings at the time were going to church,
Sure.
and this sounded way better.
Yeah. It's rest, right? It's like rest with somebody, being able to truly rest with somebody, and that's all they want. This song gets a lot bigger. It gets a lot louder and faster than I ever expect it to when it first starts. I think of it as a slow song. Isn't that weird?
It does, but it gets rolling, yeah.
It sounds very to me like walking to brunch in
Oh,
on a, like on a Sunday morning in May in like Williamsburg, Brooklyn or something like
yeah.
that. I don't know. But like
Mm,
not in like a trendy like oh my god, those
mhm.
people are so annoying sort of way, but in like a yeah, I'm just having fun. I guess I wonder, and maybe this is a controversial question,
Mhm.
what is this band without Adam Levine and his voice?
I think Adam Levine's voice is really important to the band, but I don't think Adam Levine's voice is the thing that makes this album.
Mm,
I think
Hmm.
mhm.
this album is made by the instrumental, the instrumentation and
Yeah,
musicality alongside his voice, because he still has his voice with all of their subsequent music, which is like hugely commercially successful, but
yeah,
doesn't, in my opinion, does not capture the same spirit that this one did,
yeah,
sort of tonally. Everything else that they sort of did since this album was much more like very clearly top 40 pop rock, period.
totally. Yeah.
They were 100% in that mold, and that's fine. But what I loved about this album in particular, and then in this moment, was like they weren't doing that. They were up to something else that I thought was really compelling, and no one else was doing it. And I think that is as much Adam's voice as it is the sort of the songwriting around it.
I wonder too if maybe like at the success of this album, which took them a little while for it to really take off, but then if maybe just our impression of what this band is now primarily defined by him or by his duet with Christina Aguilera or like I'll be real, I don't think I've never really tracked Maroon 5's career, or I wouldn't be able to tell you like which tracks come off of which album. So I was looking on Spotify to see like, oh, what are the songs from their most recent album? And they do a ton of they have a lot of guest spots on their albums now. Like they did a track with Megan the Stallion on the most recent album, which I was like, what? I mean, I haven't listened to it, so I don't know what it's about, but I can hear what you're saying that it feels like they have veered off into something entirely different that is not the spirit of whatever this album was and is.
Yeah, I will never know the answer to this because I don't know Adam Levine, and I'm not gonna know Adam Levine. I'm not interested in knowing Adam Levine, but I
Just so we're clear, Adam, stay away. We don't want to know you.
we just don't need to. But I will always sort of sit with the question of like, was this a failed experiment?
Mm,
Were they pressured into changing? Or did they want, like, I'm just so curious about like how this happened
yeah.
to then literally never hear anything like it again from this band.
Yeah.
It's so fascinating to me.
I did read something, in the research for this, and this was, I think, just in Levine's Wikipedia page, but there was some talk about maybe he said, I want to kind of retire from this band after a certain amount of time. I kind of want to call it a day after, the fourth or fifth album or something like that. We've reached our creative peak. A very common decision to make as a band, right? Because he was saying something about like, I don't want to be like the Stones doing this into my 40s and 50s and 60s, which I kind of can't blame him. But then he sort of went back on that. He sort of said, no, like I love doing this. It's the only thing I love to do. I'm just going to do it as long as possible, which at that point sounds like a recalculation. It sounds like almost a commercial recalculation, doesn't it? Like protecting the investment.
Absolutely.
When you put it that way. You don't want to question his artistic motives, I guess we can question them. But there seem to be some decisions that were very clearly made on economic terms. I guess when I started thinking about Maroon 5, I was like, do they have a song in the Trolls movie? I know Justin Timberlake does. But if you have a song in the Trolls movie, that's a money move. And that's okay.
Absolutely. Well, and you're not like thinking about what they're up to with songs about Jane versus like I got the moves like Jagger. You know what I mean? Like we're clearly, our priorities have shifted.
Yes.
Did I read that that's the second most downloaded song of all time is Moves Like Jagger?
Really?
I wouldn't doubt it.
Something like that, which is insane.
It was huge. It was huge when they did that duet on The Voice. I mean, like, I think he did it first, and then did the duet with Christina Aguilera. I mean, pop forces unite.
Right.
So, Michael, we asked you to bring forth a few albums that you deemed perfect. We did not define the word perfect for you. You gave us a list. I'm curious to know what your standards are, and also maybe we can reveal a couple of the other albums you chose, because they are albums I would also like to talk about, but we decided not to for various reasons. But regardless, what are your standards for a perfect album?
My qualifiers were, do I still know them front to back by heart?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And I guess relatedly, like how much did I listen to them? Have I gone back to them since I was listening to them regularly? Sure. Do I still go back to them? Are they albums that I listen to straight through without skipping any tracks? Even if I'm tempted to skip, do I not?
So it's the depth of your familiarity and the re-listenability.
Yeah. Strong points, strong pillars.
Is this an album that you still put on regularly?
Regularly is a strong word.
Which adverb would you like to use?
I would say I have listened to it unironically probably once a year.
Okay.
Every once in a while I'll just be like, I want to listen to songs about Jane. And just go on that ride for an hour, 45 minutes, whatever it is. Yeah. Once a year, maybe once every couple years. During the pandemic, I went like through a phase of going back to everything I was listening to as a kid, but yeah, if not the whole album, some, a couple of the songs fairly often, but regularly is a strong word. I don't know that I have anything that I listen to regularly.
I would like to acknowledge you did have two albums on your list that I would be happy to talk about as well. I mean, we don't have time today, obviously, but like I will say that if we hadn't had a Madonna expert already booked for the season, I would have killed to talk about Ray of Light, because that is my Madonna album, and also Sufjan Stevens, Illinois. Like, did you get to see the show at Chicago Shakes?
So good.
Really?
It's so good. It's beautiful.
That makes me so happy. I love that.
It's beautiful. So it's at the Armory right now, or it just closed at the Armory, but it's going to Broadway in a few weeks. So everyone will have a chance to pay way too much money to go see it, but it's worth it.
Let's go spend way too much money to see it, Michael. Let's do that. This one goes to 11 field trip.
Yeah, we'll use our budget.
Yeah, that's what we'll use for it. All right, Michael, I want to try something new with you. If you've ever seen, for listeners, if you've ever seen Almost Famous, the Cameron Crowe film from right around this time, actually, I think it came out like 02, 03, 04, something like that. Beautiful film about music. And there's a great question posed to one of the characters at the end, who is a musician. And the interviewer says to him, "What do you love most about music?" And so I'm going to call this this segment in honor of that question. I'm going to call this the Billy Crudup question, which is, Michael Burke, tell us in a sentence or two, what do you love most about music?
I can't steal the answer from the movie. Which is everything.
Yeah, which is everything.
But I mean that, and we're artists. We're all artists, but I always find myself in awe of musicians and people that make music, because their music is able to, we do theater, we communicate, but we communicate in the way that we communicate. Like, we use the words that we say and the body language that we do. We it's about communicating that way, versus music is able to paint pictures and communicate feeling just by making fancy air, and it's just remarkable. And I'm one of those people physiologically that music can give me chills, and just like knowing that there is that someone somewhere was like, if I play this sound and this sound together, it feels like that time that person broke my heart. And if I play this thing and this thing together, it feels like that time I wanted to murder my brother in cold blood. There's something really magnificent and ineffable about the way that music can translate and transcend, our ability to communicate with words and thought, that I just find endlessly fascinating, and just like the way it makes me feel.
I'll give you a supplementary 3 million points for its ability to translate and transcend.
I also love fancy air. I like that.
That
description for it. I just watched Poor Things, which I don't know if you've seen it, but Emma Stone's character, as she is discovering or rediscovering language, she refers to sex as furious jumping, and I enjoy euphemisms like that.
I do too. Michael Burke, this has been a real treat to talk about an album that I could have never guessed that we would talk about this album on this podcast, but I'm so glad that you brought it to us with such a genuine case that you made. But this is a competition, and thusly we need to tally the points, my friend. And so I'm going to run back through the points that I gave you throughout your case, and then we'll leave it to the ultimate decider, who is Michael Osinski. Okay, so the most recent points I gave you were 3 million points for talking about how music is just fancy air, and that music has the ability to translate and transcend. Some of the reasons why you love it so much. I gave you another 30,000 points for this album being more than just Adam Levine's voice, and that counting towards its perfection. 20,000 points for the reason Sunday Morning was the standout, being the fact that it's the top of mind whenever you think about this album itself. Before that was 100,000 points for talking about how Maroon 5's sound, it felt closer to home than other rock that you were experiencing at that point in your adolescence and your development. 60,000 points for invoking LimeWire. All the real ones know LimeWire. And 500,000 points for the Wade Robson remix of Mandy Moore's Candy. An additional 200,000 points for the Motown Christmas album and its role in your musical development. And then there was 15,000 points for it's the music of the music that you love. That's the thing that you connect to. So you add that all to the 15 bleep blorps that you gave me for my 60-second intro, and I would say this is looking like a pretty strong board. But Michael Osinski, you're going to have to bring it home for us. Tell me, has Michael Burke done a good enough job making the case for the perfection of Songs About Jane by Maroon 5 for inclusion in the Pantheon? Is this album a perfect album? Does it go to 11?
I think I am most pleased by. I think I knew this was going to be a good conversation when you sort of acknowledged from the beginning that like everything after this felt like that they made felt like it didn't quite have the same effect. And so I've like from the beginning I was like, okay, I feel like we're going in a good place. And you know what? Re-listening to this, like there are a lot of songs on this album that lots of people know, and they have lasted for I think like you said, Tyler, like 22 years. So yeah. I think that Songs About Jane by Maroon 5 does go to 11. It may enter the pantheon.
Huzzah!
We did it.
Well, fun fact, Michael Burke, we asked you to choose a standout track, but we also chose a standout track from the album ourselves because we couldn't help ourselves. Would you like to know what it is?
I'd love to.
We chose "Sweetest Goodbye." We chose the closing track to the album, and it was funny because I slacked Michael and I said, "Hey, you have any thoughts on the standout track for songs about Jane?" And he goes, "I'm feeling the last track, but I'm open to suggestion." And I was like, "I was thinking that too." So just another peek behind the curtain to the process, how the sausage is made on this podcast. But yeah, I think it was a surprise when I heard this album, or when I heard this song closing out the album. I think it's really strong. I think it ends up really sprawling and kind of grand in a way that really showcases all of the musical ability of everybody involved. And it has the soul of everything you've been talking about throughout this discussion of the genuine soul, the genuine emotion, and a height that to me is the best work that Maroon 5 has done. Michael, what struck you about it?
I mean, all the things you said. I mean, I think the fact it was a surprise. Like when I got to the end, it was the final track, and it just didn't sound. It was unexpected. Like it started out sounding one way, and then like all these guitars coming in towards the end, and I don't know. I think like maybe not everyone knows "Harder to Breathe" because I feel like that's sort of the forgotten single from the album. But like everyone knows "This Love," everyone knows "She Will Be Loved." And I thought it'll be good for our listeners to hear a song that maybe they haven't heard before. And it's kind of like a banger at the end, if we're still allowed to say that, or if maybe that makes me more of a grandpa. But I'm going to say it anyway, because that's the one I was drawn to. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this track, Michael?
I mean, I agree. I think it's a great one, and it's always kind of, because you'll hear it, but it starts off kind of chill and sort of, but it's surprising in how sort of grand and bombastic it gets. I like it.
Well, this has been great, Michael Burke. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you had a good time. We hope this was a decent hang.
It was a blast. And thanks for having me. And it was just fun. It was fun to sort of go down memory lane and think about this album and in a different way, and just sort of like think about like why it sits where it sits in my heart. It was cool.
Well, if you're in Chicago this summer, Michael, I hope that we get to hang out at some point, because I'll be back for a few weeks.
Yeah. Oh, great. I'll be here all summer. It's the first summer in a couple of years that I'm in town the whole time.
Ooh,
so
nice.
I
there
will
you go.
Be here.
It's Maroon 5 time then. You're gonna have to this album's gonna be playing nonstop. Chicago summer, songs about Jane. That's sweet right there. I like that.
Absolutely.
And dear listeners, if you're in Chicago this summer, look us up. We'll have a this one goes to 11 listeners hang somewhere at like one of the many parks in the city of Chicago. But in any case, Michael, thank you. Tyler, thank you.
Thank you.
I guess we'll see y'all next week.
Bye.
Dig it. Thank you all.